Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. At Compass Games Expo 2019, I had the chance to talk to Ken Repel, the designer of a game called 1812, War on the Great Lakes Frontier, and I caught some video of that. It is a very interesting looking game that he has in development right now. So let me get started with that video.
Hi, Ken Repel. Today we're at the Compass Games Expo, and we're showing off today 1812, the War on the Great Lake Frontier, a working title for this game here. This is a game on the War of 1812. It is totally encompassing just the Great Lakes, so it won't include the rest of the country. We're just going to focus on Lake Champlain, Lake Ontario, and Lake Erie. So this is going to be really a naval war surrounded by a land war. Okay, so we're going to have three individual Navy wars going on with the land wars happening around it. And that's the focus of these campaigns, is to conquer the lakes. That was the focus of it. In particular, Lake Ontario, due to the supply issues there. The British have supplies issues in that they're going to run down the length of the border, whereas the American supply is going to come the short way up the border. So it's going to be a lot about the U.S. ships attempting to interdict the British supplies to Upper Canada and attempting to destroy their fleets in the process, and the British will be attempting to stop the Americans from doing that. That's more or less, with a little bit of land war on the side, taking of towns and that.
So the map style is very interesting here. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because I think basically there's a hex grid, but the hex grid only extends to those places where action is occurring. I think probably many designers faced with this kind of situation might choose to do a point-to-point map. So why did you pick the hex, the standard hex grid instead?
Well, we could take this area for instance. This is what I call hybrid map. In a point-to-point map, this would be a square, then there would be a line and another square. What I've done is just said, hey, you can be stopped on the line. You don't always make it. You can be stranded in between. And what it does is it eliminates the flank marches onto the side. You never have to worry about the guy coming onto your flank. It's not going to happen. These areas are pure wilderness. You cannot march your regiments through there. Perhaps Rogers Rangers, but not any military units. Okay, so going through here is just pure wilderness? No. So I do call this a hybrid map in the fact that you're going to be traveling from point to point, but over a series of hexes.
But you have a variable end of turn mechanism, so you don't know exactly when the turn is going to end, and that's dependent on the number of cards that are being held at that time?
Yes. The way the game will end, you will add up the cards in both players' hands, roll an 8-sided. If the 8-sided is greater than the sum of the two players' hands, the game will end. This is to prevent land grabs at the very end. If you don't know when the game will end, then it's harder to reach out and just take those extra points.
You know, we say game, we're talking the game, or you do that every turn or every season?
Game.
Okay.
Just the game.
So how does the season end then, or just when you run out of cards?
When you run out of cards.
Okay.
Yes. That's just an end of game mechanism.
It's a card-driven game. Can you talk about that a little bit, about how the cards work? Is it multiple decks? There are different types of cards. There are events and ops. Can you play one or the other? Do you play both?
Okay. This is a traditional card game with the ops and the event. But in this case, it's slightly different. You will play the ops first, and you'll always get the ops, and you'll activate units. You spend an op, activate a unit. Spend an op, activate a unit. And then the event, if it says event, will automatically trigger. Okay, whatever it says on here, you automatically do. Although, the opposing player has one veto per hand, where they can veto the event and not allow it to occur. Then we'll exchange cards back and forth, playing hands, and at the end of the year, we'll roll for an end of the year to see when the game ends. It's just a regular gameplay, back and forth card play.
And when you activate a unit, you're rolling 2 dice
yes,
to determine movement points or action points?
Yes, 2 6-sided. You'll roll 2 6-sided, so you could end up getting skunked. Perhaps you could end up rolling boxers.
Is there a leader modifier to that roll?
No, it's 2 to 12 for all units, regardless of their whether they're vessels or regiments. It's always 2 to 12. So anytime you're moving, it's 2 to 12. Well, one thing about the War of 1812 is where it is. It's right in our backyard. It's right here. As a matter of fact, we're not far from there right now, from where these things are. You can visit all of these places. Not only that, but this is very accessible. It's a 3-year war. You can read the entire history of it in a 300-page book and digest the whole thing, as opposed to something like the American Revolution, which is an 8-year war. There's just a lot more history in there to digest. This one's a lot more accessible because there's simply less history to digest.